So when explaining the difference between linear, exponential, and quadratic functions, there are some similarities and there are some differences. So first we'll take a look at linear. So I have a table of an example. Our input is x and our output is y. So here we have 0, 0, 1, 4, 2, 8, 3, 12, and 4, 16. Now as you notice, with each of these y values, if you do the difference, the first difference is adding 4 every single time as you go up in x values. Now that just proves that the first difference is constant, because it is constantly adding 4 each time. Now this table represents y equals 4x in the example. So the format in writing a linear function, which is different than writing an exponential or quadratic function, is because you write your equations as y equals mx plus b. And if you show it on a graph as a different representation, it is represented with a straight line on the graph. Now moving on to exponential. Here we have a different table. So this table has an x value of 0, 17, 154, 2, 153, and 3, 459. Now as you can see, we are multiplying by 3 every single time to get there. That's what makes it exponential, because it's not adding. In order to write these equations, it would be y equals a times b to the x for the format. And when you represent it on the graph, it represents a curved line that almost hits an x value, but never ever reaches it. So in quadratic functions, we see in this table, which is represented by y equals 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. And this equation down here shows the format of the quadratic function, ax squared plus bx plus c. So here we have our first difference, which is not constant, which is different than the linear, which it was a constant first difference of plus 4. Here it is never constant and is never the same. Here we have negative 1, here we have plus 3, plus 7, plus 11, plus 15, plus 19. So in order to make it quadratic, the second difference is what's constant, but the first difference is always linear. So when we do our second difference, which is the difference of our first differences, so you find the difference of the difference, the second difference is constant of adding 4 each time in our first difference. And in order to represent this on the graph, that would be shown with a parabola, which kind of goes in a U shape. So the similarities in all of these very different functions is that they are all kind of built off of each other. So we all have our tables, the outputs, inputs, outputs, those can be the same. And they can still be represented in the same ways. They'll just look different. It can still be represented with equations, it can still be represented with graphs, and with tables. And if you think about it, the quadratic is built off of the linear, because as you notice, we are using addition as our first difference is constant here, but here our second difference is constant. So we still use that adding or subtracting in the tables. And that's the difference.